Okay, call the meeting to order, Wednesday, October 15th, Corte Madera Climate Action Committee. Start with the roll call, please.
All right. Committee member Trot.
Here.
Thank you. Committee member Simon.
Here.
Thank you. Committee member Sampath. Thank you. Committee member D. Alexander.
Here.
Thank you. Vice Chair Lang is absent and Chair Burtis.
Here.
Thank you.
Let us salute the flag. States of America. We're going to have a special subcommittee meeting to practice the Pledge of Allegiance. All right. Time for public comment here. Do we have anybody online or present who would like to make a public comment?
Not seeing anyone in person wishing to make a public comment, and I don't see anyone with their hand raised on Zoom at this time. And we also did not receive any emailed public comments.
Okay, in that case, we will close the public comment period. Moving on to approval of the minutes from the last meeting. Hopefully everybody had a chance to look them over. Any comments, amendments, anything? No, okay, in that case, somebody want to move to approve them?
Yeah, I'll make a motion to approve the minutes.
I'll second. Okay, all in favor? Aye. No opposed. Okay. Minutes are approved. Good. So let's move on to general business. We have kind of an open-ended item here, which is kind of getting a jump start on our normal scheduling, but just wanted to start the idea generation process for thinking about what we should be focused on next as a committee. Over the last 2 years, we've taken the approach of trying to just kind of pick one big topic and, you know, put a amount of effort behind it to try to get some progress. Last year, it was heat pump water heaters. That made sense in part due to the subsidies, which were available, both state and federal. And also it was still a few years out from the actual mandate around installing those. This year, as everybody knows, we focused on the multifamily home EV chargers with mixed success, although we're hoping Phil's presentation is going to have a big impact for us and some of the other things we're trying. So that effort continues, but I thought it'd be useful to kind of start that conversation around what are some, you know, what would be, if firstly, I guess, do we want to continue with this approach of trying to focus on sort of one big effort across the committee? And secondly, what are some areas of interest for people? So I thought I would just kind of open it up to people's conversation. Hopefully people put a little bit of thought into this since the last meeting. So I'll open the floor to comment.
Last time, like at the end of the meeting, we talked a little bit about how there's an organization called Ridwell, which collects like hard to recycle plastics and batteries and stuff from people's homes. And so I thought about that a little bit, and I think that could be a really interesting thing we could bring to the committee. And I don't think we can partner directly with them, but if we tried to implement our own, even if it was just like a drop-off place, maybe even in Town Park, but something like that.
And why would we not partner with them?
I just don't know if we're allowed to, but if we can, that would be amazing. Yeah.
Have you worked with them before? Or?
I have not, but my mom pays for the collection every month. So,
okay.
Yeah.
So this would be to promote them to Corte Madera residents?
To promote them or to try to implement something like that of our own, but I don't know how many resources we could put to that.
Maybe be helpful afterwards if you could just send the link to Phoebe to circulate to the committee so we can just check it out.
Yeah.
Thank you for the suggestion. That's a good one. Sarah?
Thank you. Yeah. I like that. And I think to kind of like build upon that idea, when I was looking at some of the the goals of fulfilling the climate action plan and of this working group. On the updated 2025 work plan, one of the main objectives for this committee was to do kind of education outreach focused activities. And while I was thinking about that, I was also considering all the different organizations and nonprofits and other working groups that focus on sustainability in the area, within the county and even closer, and thinking about ways that we can spread our messaging for ways to reduce greenhouse gas emissions within the town. And I think a lot of that energy that we've seen from the statistics, from the pie charts that we've had at our tabling events, come from the built environment and from transportation. How can we, not to mention zero waste efforts too, I think, anything the climate action plan could be fair game. How can we collaborate with other organizations that are doing similar work so we can leverage each other's resources to really be able to amplify different programs and initiatives like a recycling collection or a event to promote heat pump water heaters or EV chargers. I think depending on perhaps what we want to focus on, really putting the emphasis on the community engagement outreach pieces of it and how we can collaborate with local partners is something that I would like to see us do moving forward.
So on the same thing.
Could you turn up your mic?
So on that same note, I think perhaps this year, I know we've sort of looked at big projects, but I don't know how many people know about this committee. And maybe one way, and I like the way of trying to find one place where we could really educate. There's so many ways I know, people use different resources to recycle, to reuse. And maybe that's, we should try to educate, whether it's, it doesn't have to be, it could be next door or, want to be a kind of an educational center where we could try to, and spread the word that we exist and we're a resource for help. So I don't have, Karen and I did talk about that, Ridwell. And so, yeah, I think also we want to get the name out that we're a resource. So that might be a way to do that, even
Okay.
though may not have as big an impact as heat pumps.
And just to draw that out a little bit, so between what I was hearing Sarah saying was it was more about coordination with other agencies within county, state, local to amplify the message. Is that right? And then I'm not sure if you could elaborate a little bit after Sarah on kind of what channels or methods we would use to amplify I guess this is more of an awareness campaign.
Yes,
You're talking about, right?
right.
Yeah. You want to comment on that or elaborate a little bit?
Yeah, my mind's still kind of like turning gears too,
Yeah.
but Vanita talked about resilient neighborhoods a few meetings back, and I ended up joining one of the sessions and really got a lot out of it. And they have so many resources that are part of that program that people can take advantage of in all facets of sustainability, including everything that's within our climate action plan. Perhaps that could be one of the avenues too for integrating some of these programs or initiatives, is to see ways that we can team with resilient neighborhoods and get more Corte Madera residents participating in that program, because it's so all-encompassing and really data-driven in terms of quantifiably reducing your carbon footprint. That could be a way that we could really engage residents and have numbers associated with the actions.
So personal activity-based, consumption-based emission management. Is that the right way to say it?
Yeah, and for sustainable lifestyles as well, and how it can integrate into all facets of someone's life, whether it's like working or commuting or disaster preparedness and resiliency efforts. And it can be a way to kind of connect people to those facets of sustainability that really resonate with them, and really kind of cultivate that interest within the town, and to see if we can get energy around residents participating in that program.
Let's, I'll hear everybody and then we can come back to kind of maybe talk more about what would it look like concretely in terms of what we might do. Bill, did you want to? Could you turn your mic on?
There's an old story about a a guy who picked up a 2x4 and hit his mule across the head. And another guy said, "Well, why'd you do that?" And he said, "Well, first you have to get his attention." And I think that's one of the things that, we're kind of, lacking, is getting the attention of the public in general. And even though our focus has been on bigger issues that contribute to greenhouse gas emissions, sometimes it's the small things that people touch every day that will get them thinking about it, and maybe that can leapfrog onto a larger, more ambitious project. Just something as simple as, I've always been thinking about going to the grocery store and getting the bags. And I think this has been, you get a bag, and the people at the store, I don't think they're supposed to, but they say, do you want a bag? You say, no, I don't want a bag. Just go out, I forgot the bag, of course, because go out to the truck and get the bag and come back and put the groceries in the bag or carry them out, one way or the other. And I think that's something people touch every day and do every day. And I know that there's been bag ordinances and this sort of thing, but nothing's really changed. You still go to the store and you get a bag, whatever you want, I think there could be a push to get people more cognizant of how they're behaving if something simple like that is promoted, and I know there'll be a lot of pushback from merchants and that sort of thing, but I think that's too bad. I think people have got to feel it every day, what they're doing, and maybe they'll think more about consolidating trips and planning more, when they're going to go various places, instead of just dashing out to the grocery or dashing over to do this and that. And I think if there's some way of getting people in touch and alert by hitting them over the head with a 2x4, that would be.
I don't think we're really allowed to do that though, Phil.
I'm talking figuratively.
So what I'm hearing is a combination of awareness building and I think what Sarah called sustainable lifestyle. So more of a focus on individual accountability around not just climate change, but general environmental impact. Is that a fair summary?
Yes, yeah, within the confines of, what's going to benefit our work towards the climate action plan. But I think a lot of those lifestyle things do contribute directly to the emissions of the town.
Right. And are you suggesting that because you feel like we've kind of done what we can do on the other topics, or just that I'm just curious what the motivation?
Yeah, I think for me, the motivation is really kind of leveraging these different resources that already exist in the community. A lot of times I'll look at the different initiatives that are happening with all these different organizations that are all kind of tangentially doing the same thing, but doing it siloed. And I'm trying to think of ways that we can kind of break down some of those silos and see how we can leverage each other's resources to do more of this work together.
Okay.
And so some of these things have just been kind of examples of like different organizations that we could work with and how there could be some mutually beneficial goals that we have together. I think it also depends on what we want to focus on as a, committee, throughout this discussion. But I think my overall theme is to leverage the community and those individual actions.
Right. Okay. I would love to hear from Phoebe and Adam, if you care to chime in, whether you have thoughts about what would be useful from staff's perspective in terms of where the committee should be focused for the next 12 months or so.
Well, I haven't done my work planning for the next year yet, so I haven't given a huge amount of thought to sort of where this fits into that yet. I did want to bring up, just as a reminder, some of the other topics that were raised the last time the committee did this sort of like brainstorming exercise to see if any of those are still of interest. So this was back in 2023, 24, when the committee first had that subcommittee. focused on sort of selecting a focus area rather than previously the committee was doing sort of more general outreach, a lot of tabling events, and then switched to this more one focus area a year format. So at that time, the topics that were identified by the subcommittee, which was Phil, Leslie, and Pat, were the heat pump water heaters, which was the primary one, the EV chargers at multi-tenant residential buildings, which the committee's been working on this year, and then residential energy storage. So that's one that the committee hasn't really talked about yet. I do think the community outreach and the initiative that the committee has taken on this has been really important and has really supported staff in this area. And there's been some really creative approaches that I don't think would have happened without the committee's pushing. So the postcard, the heat pump water heater event. Now we're looking at this presentation and the sticker concept that we'll be talking about more. So I think those have all been really valuable efforts. I think working with resilient neighborhoods is another topic that the committee has discussed in the past, but we haven't quite gotten to a sort of actionable item there. So I think if there's ways to work with them more, that would be great. As Sarah said, they're a great organization and have a lot of resources and connections with other groups in Marin that are doing this work. Another thought might be for the committee to just get more involved and learn more about some of those other groups. So I know Phil participates in the countywide coalition of other sustainability committees, but there's also Resilient Neighborhoods, there's Marin Can, there's a couple other groups that are operating sort of at the countywide level that might have opportunities for the committee to get involved in and learn more about that work and potential partnerships.
Okay, thank you.
Really add to what Phoebe said there, because I think we covered it. And I just wanted to say that I think echo what Phoebe said just about this committee's work, and the energy that you're bringing to our community is really important. It can sometimes feel like when you're in a room when there's not many people here that it's not being heard, but I hear it, and I know that the work you're doing is getting out there into the community, and people, maybe they're not very all the time vocal about how the messages are being received, but I know our leaders and our councils is hearing some of this messaging and appreciating the work, and so I would just encourage you to continue to approach the work and make sure that I don't want you to feel that the work isn't having an effect on our community. And so I see it a lot and all the time. And that's what I was going to say. I can tell you from where we were and previously, prior to just a couple of years ago, having this committee, it's night and day, the change really in terms of just how we're communicating, whether it's in our chronicles or newsletter, or whether it's the individual postcards that are getting mailed out, or the tabling events that you're doing out at various different community events. It's all impactful. So just wanted to make that note.
Okay, well, thank you both. If between now and the next meeting, you think of anything that sort of hot topic that would be helpful for, from the council or staff's perspective, please let us know as we consider that. Did you want to add any comments? Topics to focus on? No? As our student ambassador? No? Okay.
Should we check for broader?
Yes, we should check for public comment. Yep.
So not seeing any hands raised on Zoom right now, and did not receive any emailed public comments for this item. One other thing I will add is that at a countywide level, countywide staff sustainability level, we're having some conversations right now about alternative commutes and potential efforts to get people out of their cars. So I don't think we have well, actually, the one focus area that we've identified so far is looking at special event permitting and whether there's ways to include, as part of that process, having more events think about how people are getting to the event, so that fewer people are driving. But there's still some other ideas that we're exploring on that front as well. So there may be opportunities for the committee to, if there's interest, to link up with that work and potentially support outreach efforts that might come out of that.
Okay, great. Thank you. Good. Well, I think that was useful to just kind of get a sense for where people are thinking. It seems like there are at least a couple common themes. I think what would be helpful is prior to the next meeting, if we could try to put some meat on what would it actually look like? What would we actually do to try, if we're going to focus on both the engagement and kind of, multi-stakeholder coordination, I guess, Sarah, if I could put it that way. And I'm happy to work with you and just kind of in the background to think about what that might look like. The sustainable lifestyle effort is appealing on several levels. I think we kind of went for much more sort of tangible, kind of equipment oriented approaches, if I can put it that way, in terms of, EV adoption and heat pump water heaters. We haven't talked about heat pump space heaters yet. But there's obviously interest amongst some people in terms of how do I minimize my own environmental footprint. I do think we need to be really careful not to be kind of lecturing people. And there's been a lot of backlash over the last few years about people feeling like they're being preached at. So we need to be kind of thoughtful if we're going to go down that route about how we do it. But if we could think of a couple tangible things that would actually, we think, are executable by the committee and also could align with the climate action plan that we're trying to implement, then definitely something to consider. So good. Any other comments on that topic? Maybe what is our intention in terms of agreeing on what our plan would be for next year? Is that for the next meeting or is it December?
Yeah, so my plan in terms of work planning is to, at the next meeting, have a sort of update on where we are for this year in terms of staff's 2025 work plan, and then have some proposals for next year, and then have a discussion about that. We've sort of, in the past, sort of had a staff work plan and then committee identified focus areas as well. So the staff work plan is what will go to council to be discussed in January, and council approves that work plan. But of course, the committee is sort of free to choose its own focus areas, separate or adjacent to that. So in the past, we've had that discussion in November,
Okay.
and or potentially spilling over to the December meeting.
Okay, thank you. Okay, I think that's all for that one. Good to get the brain moving a little bit. So in that case, let's move on to the next item, which is a discussion of the student survey to gather input on climate action priorities.
Yeah, absolutely. So this was something that I started thinking about after last meeting, considering the topic of what we should pursue in the future. And in alignment with the student ambassador program, I was thinking about ways that we can get the student perspective on this, not only to inform our own actions as a committee, but ways that we can leverage the student ambassador program to really engage with the student community that's in Corte Madera too. So I started working on this survey and got some great input from Penelope and Brittany and Pat and Phoebe, just to start my process of thinking about a way that we can put out a really quick and simple and easy to understand survey that students would hopefully want to fill out. My goal is to make it as short as possible while still being able to get some information back from us. But I use the climate action plan to inform broader categories that we could gauge student interest in. And this could help us think about different topic areas or just things that are top of mind for students in the community, if anything becomes really prevalent from the survey results. And with the submission of this survey to be able to get some information on the topic that perhaps interests students the most and why that topic is important to them in question number 2. And this can kind of help us get a gauge of what is important to students beyond the topic to think about ways to approach addressing that topic. In addition, having a section here to think about ways and the amount of interest that students have in getting engaged in these different topics. Is this something that they want to be hands-on involved in, or something that they think should be handled by others, depending on their availability and interest? So I'm hoping that by implementing the survey, we can, one, achieve one of the objectives of the Student Ambassador Program by putting out a survey to gauge this interest, but two, to be able to perhaps inform some of our own actions as a committee and or inform some of the work that we'll do through the Student Ambassador Program to engage students in the community. So I'd love to get some feedback if people have had a chance to review the survey. I'm open to taking different approaches if anyone has any, or different topics that we could include in question 1, or anything else that comes to mind. But my hope is that we can kind of develop again, something really quick and easy to understand for students to engage with. I'm afraid if it's too long, we won't get very many submissions. And to have this be able to be pushed out to the student community before the next meeting, so we can have some maybe preliminary findings that we can kind of share out and leverage for our next conversation.
Do we have any public comment before we move on to committee comment?
Seeing any hands raised on Zoom at this time.
Okay. Benita, go ahead.
Right. I just noticed that you said select 2 max, and then you said check all that apply. So you might want to just change that.
Oh yeah, that was a little bit of a glitch with the PDF conversion of this form, but that won't show up in the actual survey itself. I tried to cross it out, but it won't do it in the PDF version. But thank you. That would be confusing otherwise, for sure.
I think it's good. I saw the prior version of it and I found this more straightforward. So more aligned.
I just had a question, which was like, were there any ways that you were planning on having this like distributed to students?
Yeah, I think Brittany, if you don't mind, I remember you mentioned a way that you might be able to help me share this.
Redwood High School has a class called Smart Period, and it's basically twice a week class designated for students to be able to go to their quote unquote homeroom teacher and do work. A lot of this time, teachers have done like projects where they have like food drives, competitions, and it's like an easy way for Redwood to kind of survey the school or like kind of get in touch with like each student. And this would be just like this would be given through the smart class because every student has it. Each teacher can easily make it kind of like a mandatory thing at the beginning of the period, and it would just be an easy way to get an opinion of all the students.
Yeah, and to build upon that, Penelope, if you happen to have other ideas with any groups that you're connected with, or otherwise, I'd love to hear them too.
Yeah, smart's a great idea. I'm just thinking about like, I know at TAM, they also have like a tutorial period, but I'm not sure like how we could reach out to each of the schools and get there and like have enforce the teachers for implementing it. But if you have any ideas for that.
I'm also on site council, and that's basically a committee at Redwood where I work closely with the principal, and he also sends out weekly emails to teachers, so I'm sure he could include like the link of the form to the teachers so that they would have it at the beginning of their class. And we wouldn't have to make it mandatory, but we can kind of gesture that it would be a good thing to kind of help our area and help Corte Madera and kind of be a good Redwood citizen.
Is this intended primarily for high school students, not for middle school? Is that right?
Very good question. No, I did have high school students in mind, but if we think that this is at a level that middle schoolers could engage with, I'd be, happy to share it with that community as well. I don't know if I have a good sense of like the understanding of middle school students versus high school students engaging in some of these topics. I think it definitely could be or would be appropriate for high school students, but I could check in. I know a couple of individuals who work in the school system, and maybe they are connected to a middle school teacher that could give it a review and see if it'd be appropriate or not.
Yeah, I would have thought more high school, but I was just curious if you had a different intention. So we're thinking just Redwood. Is that the?
I know we have direct connections to Redwood. I think that, is definitely the audience I was thinking about. And if there's other, if we have the ability to leverage other schools that serve Corte Madera students, I'd be thrilled to have it shared there as well.
So what will be the next steps here?
Yeah, so if we, feel good about the survey, I'll, finalize it and work with Brittany and Penelope and anyone else who wants to be involved to start disseminating it. And then hopefully we'll have some results that we can share out during the next meeting.
That'd be great. It'd be good timing with our general conversation.
Yeah.
About priorities. Okay. Any other comments, questions on this? No. Do you want to take a vote, or are we good to just informally approve them to go ahead?
I don't think we need to take a vote on it unless you feel so inclined. It seems like everyone is supportive. I just had a question for Sarah on the community infrastructure check mark. What are you sort of envisioning there? Because we did just complete our environmentally preferable purchasing policy, which includes the standards for cooler roads. So what other items are you thinking of would fall under that category?
Well, I was thinking about how to kind of communicate the broader areas of the climate action plan to students who would be participating in this survey, and trying to encapsulate each of the different focus areas to see where student attention lies. I think, for the example I have here was looking into, perhaps cooler roads, but, other things that could fall within the community infrastructure, like if there is to be solar panels installed on a public building, or sometimes there's intersection with other ones too. Like I was thinking if there was like bike paths installed or other kind of greater infrastructural changes that help motivate action or to move us closer to the climate action goals. So perhaps that's one that can be described better, to your point, to kind of make it more clear for people completing the survey.
Yeah, I might try and think of a different example for that one, just because just the way it's phrased in terms of setting sustainable standards, I think that's sort of more similar to the environmentally preferable purchasing guidelines that have already been developed. I don't know that we'd be, as a town, directing more attention on that specifically. But I could see like the bike lanes, that kind of infrastructure being a focus area.
Okay, yeah, that's a good point. Cool. I'll look into that one some more and check in with you before I send it out.
Great. Thanks, Phoebe. Good. Okay. Well, I think you've got the feedback, and you've
Yeah,
got a
appreciate everyone. Yeah, thank you.
green light to go give it a try.
Yeah, no, appreciate it.
Let us know if you need help. Otherwise, we'll look forward to hearing what you get back for next meeting.
Perfect. Thank you.
Good. Okay. With that, we'll move on to a discussion of Phil's draft of his presentation to the Marin Rental Property Association regarding multifamily EV charging. So over to you, Phil.
Thank you, Phoebe, for meeting with me the other day, and I took some photos, and Phoebe prepared some slides that can be used to put up if they have the infrastructure to do it. I haven't yet confirmed with Jim Apfel that they have that capability, but I will before we meet with MCE. Just to make sure that's
Can you turn your mic on?
done. Thank you. So the first thing that I plan to do is to introduce myself and to provide a disclaimer that I'm a member of the Corte Madera Climate Action Committee, but I'm not representing the committee in this presentation. I'm here as an individual, and then talk a little bit about my background and just run through the slides and tell them what I did and how I built this project in an apartment building we have, because I'm a good guy. Not to try to get any, rebates from MCE. And this will be a bit of a challenge for me maybe because MCE is presenting first for 10 minutes or so. And they're going to talk about rebates and their program and offering technical support and that sort of thing. I assume they will. And we're going to have another meeting with them first. And because I didn't put any in the this is a grassroots effort because I didn't put any I didn't get any rebates because I thought it was important just to provide the outlets to the tenants and they pay the bill. There's no people involved in the middle. And so here's the setup in the first carport. There's four chargers and 4 carports, all with designated parking spaces. And then there's a similar setup in the other building in 4 garages. And what we've done is to evaluate the existing electrical panel and met with an electrician to determine if it was capable of supporting EV chargers without an upgrade. And we determined it was, and that was pretty easy to do. And then laid out the work, which rather than working within the panel, we put sub panels in and ran the electricity from the main meters for each apartment into a sub panel. And you can see those 4 boxes on the right there. And in turn, fed electricity back to the sub panel in the apartment and fed the remaining electricity that was available to the charging unit that was nearby. And I did basically the installation of all the hard structure, the conduits and the meters and the backboards. And the electrician ran the wires and hooked it up and got the permit, and we were able to build the thing for about $2,000 a unit with efficient planning and knowledge of the building and some consideration for aesthetics and also for usability. And none of the tenants have electric vehicles at this time, except that Tesla park there. The fellow temporarily was using that Tesla, and he plugged it into the 110 outlet in the wall to use it because I hadn't given any lessons on how to what breakers to flip and how to use the chargers. So hopefully, you know, if you build it and they will come, and that's what we're waiting for. And there's a lot of excitement around the buildings, and people are already talking about, you know, here it is. This is, you know, my next car is going to be an EV. So, and also if a landlord doesn't want to, you know, absorb the costs for this thing, they can also raise the rents and add it as an amenity. But regardless, the tenant would be paying for the power without any person in between. They won't have to put their credit card up to a machine and pay extra money to somebody else. So that's just one perspective on it. I think the next slide shows the wiring diagram, which shows how the electricity is fed from the panel to the sub panels, back to the apartment sub panel, or over to the EV charging unit. And the plug-in for the charger can just go right into that NEMA outlet, which is an outlet that's pretty universal, and most cars can accept it, and they can plug into it, and they can monitor within the car. They can program when they use the electricity, so they get the best rates. These are level 2 chargers. You know, they're 40 amps, so they'll completely charge a car overnight. A lot of my presentation will be reactive to what MCE has to say, and either, you know, the positive aspects of what MCE is doing, I will also tell people that they have certain capabilities that I didn't use that might be more appealing to the individual owner. You know, where if they're more hands-off than I was. They also have a list of contractors that they've approved, because I'm not going to promote any particular contractors or electricians to do this work. And I'm certainly not going to do it. But I'm going to be happy to meet with them at their apartment building and chit chat with them over whatever they might want to bring up, or whatever barriers there are to their implementing this kind of project.
Thank you, Phil. Before we get comments, any public comments on this, Phoebe?
I'm not seeing any public comment on this item.
Okay. Any comments or questions, feedback for Phil?
Yeah, I think the presentation is looking really nice, and I think it's a good overview of the project that you have over at that unit. I went over to Phil's place a while ago now to see it in person. And while I was there was some residents that walked by and voiced their excitement and approval about it. And I think you mentioned it during your notes too, but I think emphasizing the plus sides of putting in this installation, whether it's good feedback from the residents, or if it increases the property value, or if it becomes more attractive to future renters. You know, I think any incentives like that could be good to mention. And if you had any challenges that you weren't expecting as you were implementing this, that you can kind of give a word of caution to people who might want to do it in the future, could also be useful. I'm sure you're trying to keep the presentation pretty, pretty concise, but those are just a couple of other things that could add to it. But I think this is a great way to kind of show an example of how this can be effective. So thanks for doing it.
Yeah, I just had a couple points. Phil, firstly, thanks for doing it. Be very curious to hear what the feedback is. And also, as we talked about as a follow-up item, hopefully they'll circulate this to all the members, not just those who attend. So just a couple points. One, I thought maybe on the slide where you show the sub panels and the meters, it might be useful if you can kind of make a notation on the slide that this is the part we added and this is the part that was here already, just to kind of give a sense for people of or particularly those who aren't in the room when you present it, if they just get it on email, so they can be like, oh, here's the part that actually required some work.
Mhm.
I think that might be useful. In your presentation, I think it'll be useful to just talk about how it's different from what MCE does and why you went the route you did. I think to Sarah's point, it's MCE's got a lot of resources to offer. You had your reasons for doing it differently, but
Mhm.
maybe just to articulate that. I think it's the next slide says costs. This is the one with the diagram, but you don't actually have anything about the costs in the presentation. So when you voiced it over at about $2,000 a unit, but it's not actually in the presentation anywhere. And again, if this gets circulated subsequently to people, it might be useful to break it out actually and say, here's how much I spent on equipment, here's how much I spent on electrician, here's how much I spent on, site conditioning, just to give people a sense, but if you're comfortable with that.
Okay,
And then the last slide, you didn't have any contact information. I wasn't sure if that was
I
intended.
think it's on there. I think I just don't think
I
we put it.
removed it
Okay.
from the version in the packet just
Got
in
it.
case Phil didn't
Okay.
want his email
Yep.
public.
Blasted around there. Okay, very good. Yeah, looks good. So,
I don't want to get hundreds of emails from irate citizens.
very good. Any other questions for the committee or otherwise good to go? Yeah. Okay. Thank you. In that case, we'll move on to the final agenda item, which is discussion of the draft informational webpage and sticker for the public EV chargers. Phoebe, are you leading us on this one?
Yes.
Yeah.
So I made some changes to the draft webpage based on the feedback that heard at the last meeting. And then also Karen and Pat provided some additional feedback. And I did, so the content was included in the agenda packet, but I also drafted it on our website so you can see what that looks like. So let me see if I can pull that up. So this is what it would look like on the town website as it currently stands. So what changed? There was some sort of wordsmithing in the language. Steps 1 and 2 were swapped based on Pat's recommendation of how he felt this sort of conversation would go or process would go more naturally. So now it's first to start talking to your neighbors or coworkers and see who has interest and who might want to get involved, and then start doing more research. And then third, engaging your property manager or employer. Unfortunately, our website is unable to support the sort of accordion format that was suggested at this time. So we'll see if we can find a workaround. And I did put in a support ticket to see if that's a feature they can add. But right now, it's not something we have the ability to do, unfortunately. But we could add additional images, or potentially look at sort of a tab format if that would be more engaging.
And I just have a clarifying question. So this is what would pop up if you were to scan the QR code?
Correct.
And also the link will be on the sticker, right?
Correct. So yeah, Phil suggested including a link as well, just in case people have concerns about the QR code. So the draft sticker now has a space for the link at the bottom as well.
Any public comment on this one?
Not seeing anyone wishing to speak on this item.
Okay, comments from the committee? Questions?
Would we be posting this on socials as well as a way to like draw attention to like the information?
That's a good question. I think we could definitely do that if the committee's interested in that. The suggestion was originally the sticker, but we have access to the town newsletter, Facebook, and Nextdoor, which are all also places that we could put the same information.
Also, does the do we have the same insights onto how many times the QR code's been scanned as the last one?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, I can make it with QR code tracking.
It's a good idea to have it, at least have something about it in the newsletter and have a link to the site, so. Anita, no. Okay. Sir?
Yeah, just a couple of small comments. I really like this idea. I think maybe one in the intro we could, or I was thinking maybe having a sentence or two about why it's important or why someone should have charging at their multifamily unit. Maybe just a short line about how residents or renters, want to drive electric but lack access to convenient charging. And so this is something that addresses that issue. Something really brief, just kind of like tie it together. And if I was, I think I have it here too, at the very bottom, at the end of step 3, there isn't necessarily a clear call to action. I mean, I guess the call to action could be to look into MCE Clean Energy for, information on rebates. But if there's, if they have like a web page or if they have a resource for people to contact for support, that could be something to add in there as kind of the call to action item at the end of the web page. I don't know if that exists or not, but if it does, it could kind of tie the final step 3 into the next action that the reader has. And if space allows, if there's an opportunity to put in like a frequently asked questions section, maybe something about what the average cost is or who maintains the equipment or how to go about getting the rebates. Will it impact parking on, the property? If there are common frequently asked questions that come up, that could be a good place to put them to clear some misconceptions that people might have or concerns they have about implementing this on their property. But everything else looked great.
So to clarify, the FAQ you're thinking would be focused towards the property owner?
Yeah, I mean, I think it could be either, whoever we think is going to be scanning this code. I think even if it is a resident that's scanning the code, if they are going through this process, eventually they'll be working with the property owner and probably getting faced with some of these questions. So it could be a place to be as a resource for anticipating those kind of issues.
Okay, good suggestions. Thank you. I think it looks good, Phoebe. My only, Sarah made some really good suggestions. I think I would, if you can put logos for Charge at Home and MCE and any other links that are here, I think that would help. They're kind of buried in the text. It's a little hard to spot. So if there's some sort of visual enhancement here that makes it a little more obvious to kind of hear some resources you can go grab, that would be my suggestion. And yeah, I was also going to say if we can have a way to track, I assume that was the case, but just to make sure that we can track how many people are clicking through and actually checking it out, that would be good.
Yeah, we can definitely set that up on the QR code, and then we can also track the number of people that visit this page on our website.
Yeah. So when would this launch?
So that's a good question. I mean, the website, I can click publish at any time, but sounds like there's a couple items, edits to make. So I'll work on that. I'm not sure. I've never made a sticker before, so I'm not sure how long that process would take, but I don't expect it to be that long. So if the committee is supportive of this and I can work with Sarah to incorporate some of those edits, then I think we can move it forward in the next couple of weeks.
Yeah, I think unless anybody sees a reason, I don't see any reason to wait. So, and there's 6 chargers, is that right? Town chargers, or are we?
So there's 2 stations with 4 ports at Town Park.
Okay.
And then there's 2, the public chargers here are 2 single port stations. So 6 ports total, but 4 like physical stations.
Yeah. I mean, I wonder if there's other, I'd have to look again at the copy on the sticker, but if there's other places around town that you want to put the sticker that doesn't have to be on a charger.
That's a good question. I don't know what our policies might be around stickers in public spaces, but I can look into that.
Yeah, I mean, if there's events, bulletin boards or that, you know, that
Mhm.
kind of thing, I don't know who has them. Maybe that's very old fashioned. That's showing my age there, but
If the committee is
just-
aware of any places, they can
Yeah.
certainly print extra stickers if you'd like to distribute them.
Yeah.
As long as they're legal places, because they do have the town's logo on them, so we don't
yeah,
want
of course.
to get complaints.
Yeah, library.
I'm not sure. Do they have a bulletin board there? Does anyone know? They used to. Yeah, I think I went there during the renovation and I couldn't locate a community board, but
I think it's directly on the left when you first enter,
okay.
At the community center.
at the library.
At the library.
Sorry, yes, yeah.
Community center would be spot, tennis courts. I mean, just public town property, basically. Yeah, and I think the edits are good suggestions, but I kind of wouldn't let those slow you down. So you can always upgrade the website as after it's published and
Yeah, that's
I
true.
agree, yeah.
make sure you turn your mic on when you.
Car dealer,
Car dealers, and
they might be interested in.
that's a good question. I can look into that.
Good. Making some progress there.
Yeah.
Okay, any other questions or comments on that one?
Just to your point, you know, if some suggestions like the FAQs is more of like a long-term thing, I wouldn't want that to slow down the publishing of the sites. That could always be something for the longer term too, if we get, you know, repeat questions or something. Just as a note, you know.
Yeah, great point. We can definitely get started on the sticker production sooner.
Great. Excellent. Okay, thank you, Phoebe. So now we're on to updates and reports, starting with Steph.
Great. So just a couple updates on the last town council meeting. So as you know, the building code update was on that agenda and it was introduced on a 4-1 vote. So that means it's going to the next meeting on October 21st for the second reading and possible adoption of the ordinance. And if the next steps after that meeting, assuming it is adopted, is to submit our ordinance with the local amendments to the state for their approval. And assuming we get their approval in a timely manner, then the ordinance will go into effect on January 1st, 2026, which is when the whole building code update goes into effect. And then also at the October 7th meeting, Councilmember Beckman requested that a resolution in support of the California Climate Superfund bill be placed on the agenda for the next meeting. So that's the bill that the committee heard public comment on the last meeting or the meeting before that. And I sent out the information to you all about that bill. So that will be on the consent calendar for the October 21st meeting. So that means that typically the consent calendar, the council passes a number of sort of routine items all at once, and there isn't individual discussion of each of the items unless it's pulled by a council member. But community members can provide public comment on the consent calendar. If you'd like to go comment as an individual, you're welcome to either via email or during the meeting. And that's all I had for staff updates. Adam, is there anything you'd like to?
Actually, before you move on, can you just elaborate on you had a no vote on the building codes? What was that was from the council, right?
Yes, that
Yeah.
was from Councilmember Andrews.
What was the
And
reasoning there?
He did not provide a rationale.
Okay. Any updates from committee members on anything? Oops, sorry, Adam's going. Okay.
I mentioned this to a couple of you as you came in, but I do want to give you an early advanced invitation to the this year's volunteer dinner, which includes all of our advisory bodies and committees and commissions members, and it will be on November 14th this year. I believe it usually starts around 6 or 7 at the community center. We'll be at the community center. So our way of just showing some appreciation for all the work that you do.
Thank you. Look forward to it. Very good. Any committee members with updates? Anything they want to add? No? Okay. In that case, we're on to future agenda items. So let's see, we'll definitely be talking about our priorities, focus areas again. Student survey. Yeah, for feedback. I think hopefully, Phil, you want to give us an update on how wait, is your presentation is October 28th, right? Yeah, so we'll have that feedback and I guess hopefully some information about whether they're going to distribute it for us. And I guess an update on item D as well, right? That can be a staff update if you prefer, if you'd rather not have it be an agenda item.
Yeah, we can
Sticker. Yeah.
see how it's going at that point. The other items I had on my radar is hopefully an update to the scorecard data that Karen requested, and then potentially also some information on our the use of our public EV charging stations. And then, as I mentioned earlier, the 2025 work plan sort of progress report, and then discussion of 2026 staff work plan.
Did you say 2026 progress report? Is that what you said?
2025 progress report.
2025 progress report
and
and
then-
26 work plan. Okay.
Yes.
Okay. Anybody else have a item they'd like to propose for the agenda? No. Okay. If you do come up with something between now and then that falls outside this, that already sounds like a fairly busy agenda. But please email Evie with that. Good. Any other business from anybody? No. Okay. In that case, we are adjourned. Thank you.